absolutely brilliant. Let's start with the psychological development background in childhood. There was a famous psychoanalyst in the 40s and 50s. Her name was Karen Horney. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. By far my favorite psychologist of all time. I keep reading I keep making a point of reading all her books once a decade, and the time is coming now. Karen Horney is Horney. Karen Horney pointed out that the child is dehumanized and instrumentalized in abusive families. His parents love him not for what he really is, but for what they wish and imagine him to be, the fulfillment of their dreams and frustrated wishes. The child becomes the vessel of his parents' discontented lives, a tool, a magic brush with which they can transform their failures into successes, their humiliation into victory, their frustrations into happiness. The child is taught to ignore reality and to occupy the parental fantastic space. I jokingly, I usually say that it's a family where the child is not put on a pedestal, but the pedestal is put on the child. Such an unfortunate child, I'm continuing, feels omnipotent and omniscient, perfect and brilliant, worthy of adoration and entitled to special treatment. The faculties that are honed by constantly brushing against bruising reality, faculties like empathy, compassion, realistic assessment of one's abilities and limitations, realistic expectations of oneself, of others, personal boundaries, teamwork, social skills, perseverance, goal orientation, not to mention the ability to postpone gratification, delay gratification, and to work hard to achieve things. All these are the outcomes of brushing against reality, of the friction of life. They're all lacking or missing in such a child. And this kind of child, Peter Pan, puer adolescent, when he turns adult, he sees no reason to grow up, no reason to invest in his skills and education. He's convinced that his inherent genius should suffice. He is a wunderkind. He feels entitled for merely being, rather than for actually doing. It reminds me of the nobility, in the previous centuries. They felt entitled not by virtue of any merit or accomplishment, but as the inevitable foreordained outcome of the fact that they were born, of their birthright. So it's like this kind of children, they belong to a new aristocracy, a new nobility, and we should all serve them in a kind of mental feudalism. In other words, the child is not meritocratic, but aristocratic. Why am I talking so much? This is the epitome and quintessence of narcissism. It's a narcissist. But such a mental structure is brittle, fragile, vulnerable, susceptible to criticism and disagreement, open to the incessant encounter with a harsh and intolerant world. Deep inside, narcissists of both kinds, narcissists that were fashioned by classic abuse, and narcissists yielded by being idolized, both kinds of narcissists, they feel inadequate. They feel phony, the imposter syndrome. They feel fake, inferior, and deserving of punishment. And this is where I beg to differ with Millen. Millen makes a distinction between several types of narcissists, and he wrongly, in my view, assumes that the classic narcissist is the outcome of overvaluation, idolization, spoiling, and so is possessed of supreme, unchallenged self-confidence and is devoid of any self-doubt. According to Millen, it is the compensatory narcissist, another type, who falls prey to nagging self-doubts, feelings of inferiority, and a masochistic desire for self-punishment. But this distinction is unnecessary because it's wrong. There is only one type of narcissist. There are two developmental paths and two ways to express narcissism. Trump's way of expressing narcissism is not the way that, for example, someone who is more covert would do it. But all narcissists are besieged by deeply ingrained, though at times not conscious, I will grant Millen that, deeply ingrained feelings of inadequacy, fears of failure, masochistic desires to be caught and penalized, a fluctuating sense of self-worth regulated by narcissistic supply, and an overwhelming sensation of fakeness. That's why all narcissists, are hypervigilant. That's why they react to even the most innocuous comment as though it were an attack or a slight. They become very aggressive if they think they've been offended. The grandiosity gap between a fantastically grandiose and unlimited self-image and the actual limited accomplishments and achievements of the narcissist, this grandiosity gap is grating. Its recurrence, because it happens all the time, threatens the precariously balanced house of cards that is the narcissistic personality. The narcissist finds to his chagrin that people out there are much less admiring, much less accommodating, much less accepting than his adulating parents. As the narcissist grows old, he often becomes the target of constant derision and mockery. It's a sorry sight indeed. He's a buffoon. Buffoon, pompous, full of himself, full. The narcissist's claims of superiority appear less plausible and substantial the more and the longer he makes them or insists on them. Pathological narcissism, originally a defense mechanism intended to shield the narcissist from an injurious world, becomes the main source of hurt. It's the narcissism that generates the injuries. It's counterproductive, it's dangerous. Overwhelmed by negative or absent narcissistic supply, the narcissist is forced to let go of his narcissistic defenses, and that's when collapse happens. The narcissist then has to compensate for the collapse, and he does this by becoming covert. So, overt, challenges by reality, very painful, very mortifying. Narcissistic injuries are plenty. Narcissist cannot stand it anymore. He falls apart. He collapses. He's mortified, and he becomes covert. But the covert narcissistic phase is a delusional phase, and there are variants of covert narcissism. It's not a single thing. The narcissist resorts to self-delusion, unable to completely ignore contrarian opinion and data. The narcissist reframes them. He transmutes them. Unable to face the dismal failure that he is, the narcissist partially withdraws from reality. To soothe and to salve the pain of disillusionment, the narcissist administers to himself a mixture of lies, distortions, half-truths, and outlandish interpretations of events around him.